Joining us today on the Daily Signal podcast is Sean Spicer, host of Spicer & Company on Newsmax TV. And of course, he's also the former Trump White House press secretary. Sean, thanks for joining us today.
Good to see you, Kate. Thanks for having me.
All right, so I want to discuss your show, but first off, let's talk about Newsmax. Newsmax has seen huge ratings growth in recent weeks, but the network's actually been around for several years. So tell us about it. What's its editorial vision? What sets it apart from other networks?
So, I'm going to do my best here. Chris Ruddy is obviously the one who knows the inside and out, but Chris started the channel a while back, but it largely had a lot of simulcasting of radio shows and whatever, and then Chris really started to dig into a lot more of the original programming starting earlier this year with Greg Kelly, 7 o'clock, myself, and we've got a lot of other great folks that kind of got moved around. And we've now got original programming starting at 7 a.m., going all the way through, I think it's 9 o'clock at night now with Grant Stinchfield. I'm on every day at 6. I think that the goal is, I think we are admittedly right of center. I think there's a couple things that are different. Our news programming during the day is pretty straightforward. We tell you what's going on. The big difference, I think, is that we are the overarching philosophy is to bring on smart people, let them tell you what's going on, and let viewers make up their mind. The beauty of my show is that I've said all along, we're on every night at 6 o'clock. I'm not a journalist. I don't want to play one. I don't intend to be one. What I want to do is talk about somebody bring on guests that are really insightful, and then have a conversation with them as someone who's been in the arena. I've spent 21 years in the military, 25 years in campaign, 6 years at the RNC, 8 months as the president's press, in the White House, on his campaign. I can actually have a conversation with someone about, here's what's actually happening in the campaign at that kind of moment. Here's what a member of Congress is thinking. Here's how the decision-making process works in these various facets of either government or a campaign. And I'm not afraid to tell the guest, okay, well, here's my opinion, because that's the beauty of it. But it's a conversation, and we're not trying to tell the viewers what to think. We're bringing on smart people, letting them hear that discussion, and then go back from it. Every show's got a little bit of a different flavor to it. Greg and Grant are after me, and they are very opinionated with what they think. They bring on great guests, but we're not trying to hide it. We're unlike some of these other outlets that try to pretend that they're all into this journalism thing and yet have a very left-wing bias. We're open about where we stand. Our daytime guys are obviously very much, here's the news. And then at the night, we kind of give you our takes on stuff. And I think the beauty of what's been happening is starting, mid-summer, we really just saw a nice steady increase every week, people coming over. But when the election happened, it was on election night, we were there till 2 a.m. on the decision desk. And the thing was great is that, and I think where people started to really tune into Newsmax is they were listening to myself, Mark Halperin, Heather Nauert, so many other folks, Joe Pinion, sitting around the table, just sort of telling people where things stood in a state. Okay, this is how much is in, this is what he used to get in this is what he's getting now, this is blah, blah, blah. But it was just, we weren't trying to tell you the outcome of the election. We were giving you insight into, hey, this county is going to be important. Here's what it was last time. And I think what people appreciated on election night was we weren't trying to call the race and tell you who we project to be the winner, which I don't really think is the role of journalists. We were telling you, doing analysis. Here's where we think, this county is going to be important, or this is how much is still left out in this, or so-and-so is overperforming in this area. And it went gangbusters since then. People have really tuned in because I think that they appreciate the fact that Newsmax isn't here to tell you what to think. We're just to give you as much information as possible to make up a decision for yourself and be better informed.
So for those of our readers or listeners who are interested in Newsmax, is it a cable station? Is it on YouTube? What's the best way to access it?
That's a great question, Kate, because the answer is D, all of the above. The thing that really makes Newsmax unique is that we're in 70 million homes. So if you have cable, Xfinity, Fios, Cox, Spectrum, or you have, Dish or Direct, we're on everything. So we're on all those stations. If you go to newsmax.com, there's a little cable finder and you can figure out your channel. But even better, if you go to YouTube, you can stream it live. If you go to newsmaxtv.com, you can watch it live from your smartphone if you don't have the YouTube app. We're on all the OTT stuff like Pluto and Roku. So you can basically watch us wherever you are, however you want to. So if you're in the car driving down the highway and you just want to put it on your smartphone, or you have a YouTube app and you want to watch it from your smart TV, and you're a cord cutter, then you can do that. But it's unique because there's no other station that has that ability. You have to have a cable subscription if you want to watch one of the other premium news stations. And I think that people appreciate that because it's, some people are total cord cutters, and so they want to watch, via YouTube. I have a TV here in my office, and that's what I don't have there's no cord. I just put it on YouTube and connect to the internet and watch it. But I can go home then and then put it on, I have DirecTV at home, so I go to channel 349 and watch it at home on DirecTV. But it's the beauty of Newsmax right now is that no matter where you are, you can watch it.
That's awesome. As a cord cutter, really appreciate that. So you have a very unique perspective, I would say, on the past 4 years. You started out as the White House press secretary, election night, you're working for Newsmax. What do you think of the media's coverage and its evolution over President Trump's term the past 4 years?
It's a fascinating question because for me, I've been able to kind of look at things now in different lenses, both being there, then kind of outside for a while, doing a lot of commentary, and now as someone who gets to sit in a host role. So I would answer the question by this. I think it's gotten much more personal, meaning that you see all these folks, and I think much more personal, but also very bad. I think you watch these folks talk about their personal bias a lot more, expose their personal bias a lot more. They pretend that they're neutral. When I read a story, there's days where I wonder, do they understand how biased they are when they write it in the way that they have? They are largely wrong on a lot of things in terms of how they present them. For example, the New York Times the other day had a story that says Biden has accumulated 270 electoral votes. That's not true. The Electoral College hasn't met. It meets December 14th. And so for all these folks who like to virtue signal and talk about truth and facts first and all this stuff, they mislead their voters. They can say he is likely to get that, or he's presumed, or he's on his way, or when the Electoral College meets. But they cheapen our system of government when they tell the American people about how things are that are not accurate. And so I think it's gotten much worse. And much more bias. And the thing that's interesting to me is I don't know that they care. I joked for a while that Biden was getting softballs, and then I had to edit it and say that he's getting beach balls, because the one time that they had a chance to ask him a question during the campaign, he'd been absent for a while. They asked him, what flavor ice cream did you get today? And I'm not kidding. That was the question that they asked. The amount, the kid gloves by which they handled them is embarrassing to journalism.
So I was struck by how you said it's gotten more personal, because at the Daily Signal, we try to keep the focus on policies, not people, not make it inordinately personal in a way that's inappropriate. But we've seen, so many very intense personal attacks on Trump, on other conservatives. Could you elaborate a bit more on what you meant about that?
Yeah, so I covered this on my show yesterday. There was a story in the Washington Post that talked about, it may not be the case that Melania Trump divorces the president right after they leave. Some people actually think that they like each other. It was appalling to me to think that a news outlet is covering someone's marriage, regardless of who it is, and speculating about whether or not they're really going to be leaving or not, because the truth is that we've all been talking about them, this faux marriage that they have and how they're getting divorced. And I'm like, no, we haven't. It was,
Right.
And the idea that any of the reporters, and I think there were 3 of them on the byline, have any clue or insight into their relationship. I will tell you this on a personal level. I've had the opportunity to be near them several times during my tenure, both in the campaign, during the White House stint, and afterwards. My impression is they're an amazing kind of combination, and the president values and respects the first lady's input on stuff. She is unbelievable with her counsel to him. And so I'm sitting here reading an article like that, thinking to myself, who else would write a story speculating on the status of somebody's marriage, number one. But number two, coming at it from the angle of, well, we've all assumed they're getting divorced, but, the reality is maybe they will stay together. It's so highly inappropriate. And yet, nobody would it didn't even cause anybody to kind of go, wow, that really is it was oh yeah, that's a good story in the Washington Post, share it. And I'm thinking, if you wrote this story about Pelosi and her husband, there would be outrage.
Right. And I would say there should be outrage. I mean, I think too often people forget these are real people. These are not characters in a telenova or whatever.
They're also, they are real people. They breathe. But the other thing that's interesting to me is that it's not like these reporters have a clue. They don't know who they are. I mean, they haven't spent any time with them. I mean, it's like they're writing it because they talk to 4 sources who, say that, that they talked to somebody who knows someone who was on a Zoom with them that thinks the following. I mean, I just, it's so, it literally drove me up a wall to read that yesterday.
So you mentioned about the New York Times and the Electoral College votes, and more broadly, what do you think of the media's coverage of the election and the aftermath? Similar to you at Daily Signal, we're saying, let's let the litigation play out, let's let the recounts play out. But the media's, by and large, has taken a different approach.
Yeah, I mean, they've decided the outcome of, I mean, look, you can analyze somebody's legal briefs or whatever, or talk about their chances, right? That they may or may not do stuff. And in politics, we always talk about these things. Well, no one who's ever been in 3rd place in the 2nd Monday in February has won the New Hampshire primary. It's like, who cares? I mean, it's like there's such speculation about what's really going to happen. My view is that let the process play out. They have been, it's amazing to me when you read publications like Politico or listen to people like Chuck Todd, how spectacularly wrong they are about so many things that they claim to be professionals in, and yet never have to answer for the mistakes and the wrongness, right? So they talk about this big blue wave that's going to come crashing down. Republicans pick up seats in the House of Representatives that was supposed to wash them away. Politico had a big thing on there. Kevin McCarthy's, hold on the conference will get smaller because there'll be less Republicans. There's now more. He's actually, within possibly a handful of just or greater of taking over the House. The Senate, barring some catastrophe in Georgia, will remain in Republican hands. The president got more votes than he ever did before. He grew his vote among blacks, Hispanics, Jewish Americans who they thought it was going to be worse. So they're spectacularly wrong, and yet there's no consequence for it. And it's amazing to me that that there's never any consequence for it. There's no scorecard. It's not like at the end of the season, a reporter has a batting average. You go, wow, you were horrible. You never hit a ball.
Oh my gosh, I love that idea of batting averages for political reporters. That would be phenomenal.
But the other thing, Kate, is they always couch stuff in it's very possible that the following happens. And then they go, well, we only said it was possible. So they always like to use weasel words to make sure that there's never any sense of full accountability, right? I mean, it's literally like waking up right now and saying it could be sunny or raining tomorrow. It's like but it also could be cloudy. And then tomorrow, I mean, what's the point in making a prediction if you're going to give yourself cover on every basis? And they go, see, I was right. It was raining or cloudy or, and that takes away any sense of professionalism.
So to pivot a little bit, I saw on your show recently you covered the big tech hearings in the Senate. And among conservative media, there's increasing concern about these tech companies censoring content. As conservatives, we think private companies can make their own decisions, but right. We're also grappling with it. I mean, Daily Signal had a YouTube video pull down a doctor talking about gender dysphoria because they didn't like one sentence she said. So right. How do you think conservative media should approach the tech companies?
Gingerly. I think that here's the difference, because I'm with you. As a conservative, I'm not a big fan of government regulation, but I think the difference with what's going on is that Twitter and Facebook have been given government protection. They're covered by Section 230 of the Federal Decency Act, which, gives them more protection than it does the Washington Post. If the Washington Post maligns you, you can sue them. Well, Twitter and Facebook claim that they're just platforms. They're not publishers, and which is not true. So I think that conservatives need to hold them accountable in the sense that it's like they shouldn't have the protections that they do, full stop. Because you can sue the Washington Post if they say anything. And what Twitter and Facebook in particular want is to have it both ways. They want to say that they're platforms and therefore they're not publishers, they're not editors, but then they do what they do to you guys and they do to others, which is they label something on a video that's an opposing view. And it's weird. Like, I'm sitting here during COVID, watch doctors talk about things, right? And they're saying, I've seen the following. Well, if a doctor doesn't say what the conventional wisdom is, then somehow it's not right. And if you think about the evolution of what the medical community has told us over the course of COVID, it has changed. It has evolved. So would they have flagged a video at the beginning while the science said don't wear a mask? If somebody was out there saying the best thing you should do is wear a mask, at that point they probably would have flagged it and said, well, science doesn't prove this. Now they're saying wear a mask. And then when they did say it, the initial thing was, well, it's just to protect other people, not you, right? Now they're saying it potentially does both. But the point is that it's evolved. It's a novel virus. I'm not here to get into that piece of it. But I think that the point is that who are they to decide? I saw a video flagged yesterday that said, according to the Post, the Washington Post and the New York Times, and I thought to myself, I don't understand who made them experts. Like, so that because of stories published in the Washington Post, that some have some kind of expertise? No way.
Couldn't agree more. So on another note, President Trump, well, actually, I should backtrack here. Some reports have said that President Trump is interested in potentially starting his own TV show or maybe even his own network if he isn't reelected. Could you see the president doing that? And what do you think he'd be like?
Sure, I could. I mean, he can, he's got a huge audience and they're very loyal to him. I think Chris Ruddy, the CEO of Newsmax, has said before, we'd love to see him more as a guest on Newsmax, but he'll do whatever he wants to do. I do think, though, the president is someone who I don't think likes to be pigeonholed by one thing. He likes to go out there and be on all the different channels and different. And so I think confining himself to one channel would be difficult. So I don't know. But I also don't know. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for him now to do stuff online. But I think he really loves the broadcast piece of this. So he's got a lot of opportunities, no matter what or when. So we'll see. But there's not going to be any lack of desire to get him on.
So one question I have that you might be able to address is, obviously President Trump has been very openly spoken during his time in office, but we do know that occasionally he still goes off the record and, runs things by his advisors. Do you think you could see him speaking even more openly out of office?
I don't know what more openly, how he could be more open. I think between what he says and what he tweets, he's extremely open.
Okay. Didn't know if he was holding some things back that you saw during your time there.
I mean, I think if you read some of those tweets, he is direct. There's no kidding around.
All right. So you, as we talked about, have been a press secretary at the RNC, the White House, etc. I think sometimes working in conservative media, as you are now, you sometimes get frustrated because it feels like conservative lawmakers rail against the media, but then give all their best scoops to the same traditional media. So yes. I wanted to ask you, do you think there's room for growth among conservative lawmakers, and how should they approach the media?
What do you mean, is there a growth among them?
Well, I mean, let me rephrase this. Is there room for their communication strategy to evolve in how they treat the media, both conservative and traditional?
Look, I find it very frustrating myself. I spent 6 years at the RNC, and I think we tried to bring conservative media wherever we went, give a seat at but it blows my mind to consistently watch folks, preach about the bias and then say, okay, well, I'm going over and doing these 3 interviews on MSNBC. It's like they don't like you. They never will like you. You're only giving them credibility. I would like to see a world where conservative lawmakers pledged at least 50% of their time media interviews to conservative outlets. I think that there's no reason a conservative, if you're truly conservative, number one, this is the world that we live in today. This is where a lot of these folks are coming, whether it's Newsmax or the Daily Signal or what have you. But number two is, I think that there's a commitment as conservatives that we should have to help each other out. So, you've got the Daily Signal and Breitbart and Daily Caller. Like, my view is the more the better. We should have, and we should be supportive of each other, because this is, I mean, look, my personal view is the left fears the right. There's a reason that they cancel people out. There's a reason they run people off college campuses. There are reasons that, Hollywood won't do and green light certain projects. It's because they fear the policies of the right. They know that they are better, and they just don't want them. And they will overlook their own self-interest. I wrote all about this in my book, Leading America, that they will overlook their self-interest, whether it's audience side or profit, because they don't want the right to have a voice. And so the more that there is opportunities for conservative media to present those policies to folks, the better.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sean.
You bet, Kate.
And again, I should note the show is Spicer and Company, and you can check it out on Newsmax TV.
Every night, 6 o'clock.